YouTube, I'm back with my review of the Acer XF270H. Today, when we check it out. Alright, some of you may have seen my previous unboxing video for this monitor. I feel like it's worth going more in depth about it. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's start with the appearance. Now, this is a pretty good looking monitor, especially for the price range. Brand new, this monitor is around $300. I did get it on sale from Best Buy for $250. I think that it looks pretty good. I think it looks like a monitor that could be a little bit more expensive. They don't really skimp on the design. It's pretty basic though overall. It looks like most modern monitors. The bezels are very thin. The bezel at the bottom is thicker. It has the Acer logo. It looks really classy in my opinion. The only thing that screams kind of gamer about it is that it has a red accent on the base. Other than that, it's pretty low profile. Like, I think it will look good in an office environment or with a gaming computer, pretty much anywhere. So as far as it looks, it's pretty sleek. There's no buttons on the front. All the buttons are in the back. I personally don't like that. That's gonna be, up to the discretion of the user. It's not the biggest deal. If you hit one of the buttons on the back, it does give you an on-screen display where the button is located on the back, so you kind of know what you're pressing. I would still prefer to at least have the power button on the front. That is a personal knock for me, but again, not the hugest deal. Alright, next we're gonna roll right into features. So the main reason to buy this monitor is that it has a 144 Hz refresh rate and a 1 millisecond response time. So for those of you that don't know, the refresh rate basically ties to how many frames can this monitor display per second. So it can display up to 144 frames per second. To put that into perspective, most Xbox One and PS4 games usually run at 30 to 60 frames. However, a lot of PC games have an unlocked frame rate and can run much higher than that. But if you have a monitor that's only 60 Hz, meaning that it can only display 60 frames per second, but you have a game that's running at 100, you get what's called screen tearing. Basically, the graphics card is sending the monitor too many images, and you might see where like the image kind of breaks up a little bit. It's just not as smooth as if you have a monitor that's able to display that many frames per second. So that's why a lot of gamers like it. Like if they have a graphics card that can push past 60 frames per second at the given resolution. This has a 1080p resolution. So a lot of modern graphics cards will be able to push this, probably on medium to high settings depending on what card you have. So I'm running the 1070 Ti in the PC that I'm using this with. It's more than enough for me to crank it up to higher and ultra on most games. So for me, it's worth it. Another feature is it does support FreeSync or AMD FreeSync, which means it basically matches the refresh rate of the monitor to how many frames are being sent at a given time, whereas VSync, which is a feature that's usually built into the game title itself, locks the frame rate of the game so that way the monitor can match that frame rate. G-Sync and FreeSync match the game's frame rate with the monitor. So if 1 second it might be giving you 100 frames, then it dips to 90, the monitor's refresh rate's also going to change along with that. And with that being said, technically this does work for G-Sync. I did a video on how to enable G-Sync on a FreeSync monitor where I showed a comparison with G-Sync off and on using this particular monitor. In my opinion, it is a little bit smoother, but it's not a game changer. I think even without using G-Sync, you're still going to get a lot of the benefits of the monitor. With that being said, other features, it does have 4 USB 3.0, I guess technically now it's USB 3.1 ports. It has an two HDMI ports and a display port for your device capability with your PC. For G-Sync, you have to use DisplayPort. That is one thing. So I specifically looked for a monitor that had DisplayPort, and I wanted to get a FreeSync monitor because generally they're cheaper than G-Sync. The other thing is it does feature an aux jack, so if you want to hook up speakers directly to the monitor or headphones or whatever, you do have the ability to do that as well. and it has built-in speakers, which I haven't tested personally. I typically just don't use built-in speakers with monitors because usually they're not great. Kind of the same thing with like any flat screen TV. Usually built-in speakers are not great unless it's like one of those fancy $8,000 LG TVs that have this external soundbar. I have personally tested the aux jack because I just have my speakers connected directly to it to save some space, some clutter on the back of my PC. It works pretty good. Like it's what you would expect. It's a cool feature to have. So it's kind of like an added bonus to what's already a pretty good monitor. Just something to consider if that's something that you're looking for as well. The next thing I want to get into is performance. So the only point of reference that I personally have are my two ultra-wide monitors. One is not a gaming display at all, but it was the first ultra-wide monitor that I had. It's the one that I was using on this computer before I got this monitor. It's a 60 Hz refresh rate. It's pretty standard. It's more for productivity than it is for gaming. And then I also have another ultra-wide monitor that's, I think it's 3560 by 1440. It's like this $800, at least I paid $800 for it. Alienware G-Sync, and it is a beast. Like, that thing shreds. So I personally, performance-wise, for gaming-wise, obviously it's a lot better than my standard 60 Hz monitor. It, of course, doesn't match my other G-Sync monitor. That one, the colors are a little bit better. It's a little bit smoother. But you're talking about a almost $600 price difference from what I paid. So, of course, I expect that monitor to be better. But it really does hold its own against a monitor that's even $600 more expensive. Like, if you're in the market for a monitor like that, like this monitor at, you know, $250 to $300, performance-wise, you're not going to be missing much. And it really depends on what resolution you want to stay at. So, like I said, my other one's a way higher resolution, but I'm also running a 1080 Ti on that computer. This one, I wanted something that was going to be more like I'm getting the most performance and the most frames out of the graphics card that I have versus pushing a higher resolution. So that's why I stuck with 1080p, so I could kind of max out most of the current games well over 60 frames per second. And in that aspect, when it comes to being super fast, when it comes to response time, it's outstanding. Like, I can't express that more. Even with me not technically using an AMD card to take advantage of FreeSync, it's still an outstanding monitor. I will say that color calibration out of the box, at least the preset, is pretty bad. I switched over to the movie preset because I'm not one that's going to mess too much with calibration. If it looks good, like if the colors look normal to me, then I'm fine. I'm not picky with colors at all. But I noticed that my Windows start bar looked pretty gray and it looked pretty washed out with the default preset. So I definitely would, if you buy this monitor, look into possibly calibrating it. Like I said, I just switched to the movie mode. In my opinion, it looks a lot better. Alright, let's talk about the value. So I kind of expressed this throughout the video. For a monitor that works with both FreeSync and technically G-Sync, it's not verified as being G-Sync compatible by NVIDIA. There are some FreeSync monitors that have been like tested and verified by NVIDIA saying, hey, this works fine. This is not one of those monitors. I personally haven't had any issues. But for all the features that it offers, I think it's a great value. Now, you can find some higher resolution monitors for around the same price on Amazon. It may not be like as well of a known brand as Acer, but it is possible. I saw one recently that was like $270 and it had it was the same resolution as my other monitor. It wasn't an ultra wide though, but it depends what you're looking for. I think at this size, for like a 27-inch, I'm gonna stick to 1080p, and then maybe if I'm going up to like an ultra wide, then I want a higher resolution, because then you pretty much have the real estate of two monitors in one when you're talking about ultra wide. For this, I think 1080 is fine. If you do want to go up in resolution, that's fine. Like if you have the graphics card to handle it, I completely understand. But I feel like this is more of an option for a lower budget gamer. And I think that for all the performances it offers, I think that is a great value. Like I said, the main knock on it was the out-of-the-box color calibration, but that seemed to be mostly fixed just by switching the color profile. For me at least, I think the colors look fine now. I do think that it might not be the best monitor for video editing. I don't know. Like, I don't know how color accurate it is. I do most of my video editing on my Mac because I know that has a great screen. So if you're trying to do, let's say if you're trying to do video editing and gaming, then maybe you might want to look elsewhere for a monitor. But as a gaming proposition for maybe more of a budget type setup, not that, you know, $250 to $300 is exactly budget, but it's lower price for the performance it's offering, I think it's a great value. So in conclusion, I would recommend this monitor for its versatility. So like, let's say if you do switch to an AMD card if you're on NVIDIA or vice versa, it pretty much works with both G-Sync and FreeSync. It's super smooth. The colors are decent. You have the extra USB ports to plug stuff into. I actually do use the USB ports up here sometimes just because it's more convenient than plugging stuff into the actual tower for me. And then of course you have your aux port, you have multiple inputs, like there's so many options, and it's just a nice looking monitor. Like, it looks good on a desk. Like, it's not something that, like, if you're trying to be low profile, it's not something that you would be embarrassed by having on your desk. Like when your friends come over, like, oh, they got a gaming monitor. I think it looks pretty sleek, and I think performance wise it's a hard value to beat. Like I said, there are cheaper monitors around the same price that do offer higher resolutions, but I don't feel like they have the backing of this one. At least like when I was looking at reviews, like this has thousands of reviews out there and they're mostly positive, and there's a reason for that. It's because this monitor is really fucking good. So if you made the investment and bought one, you should feel pretty good about yourself. If not, if you're looking for a monitor, this should definitely be a consideration for you. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, remember to do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.